This is Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon. Mitch LaFon.
Welcome to another episode of Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon here for August 2019. I have been up and down the East Coast, heading out to shows, seeing Bryan Adams, Billy Idol, Heavy Montreal, Oceanic, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Did a lot of it with a buddy of mine named Jeremy White, who works at the Beat 92.5 in Montreal. And, you know, I have got to get him on this show because he does probably the best Paul Stanley imitation you have ever heard. And he only tops it, perhaps, with his David Coverdale imitation. So, you know what? I got to get Jeremy on here to have a chat with, Jeremy Stanley and Jeremy Coverdale. I think that would be absolutely spectacular. And I'm telling you, you would die laughing. Anyway, we saw a bunch of shows, including, like I said, Heavy Montreal. And at Heavy Montreal, I had a chance to sit down with a bunch of different artists, including Godsmack. And so today I'm going to give you Shannon Larkin, the drummer for the band. They have a new album out. Well, new album. It came out last year. It's called When Legends Arise. We revisit that a little bit, and we talk about when can we expect new music from the band. But the last time I interviewed Shannon, we had this discussion about, does Godsmack use backing tracks? And as I was sitting on the bus in Heavy Montreal, before we got the tape rolling, we started talking about it again. And then we said, hey, you know what? Let's just turn on the tape and let's start recording. Because the conversation was really good. It's like, man, this is great content. Why are we not capturing this? Anyway, so we go straight into the interview discussing backing tracks, which I find to be an incredibly fascinating topic because there are, and you've heard me talk about this before, but there are moments in time where a backing track is essential, and I think Metallica does it right. You know, when you hear the intro tape for One, for example, the Machine Guns and all, it's a tape. The band's not playing that, and the band doesn't hide the fact. And in fact, there are many other songs in the Metallica setlist, or songs that appear in the Metallica setlist from time to time, where the band is completely not on stage and there's music playing and it's very obvious that a tape is running. So, I'm good with that. That's not a problem. It's perhaps the cheating that gets me, where you go and you think, hey, that guy is singing so great tonight. And then you find out that it was some guy in the back pushing a button to have the vocals come out. Anyway, I don't want to get back on this topic. The other thing that I found interesting about Shannon and most drummers that I talk to, in fact, I would say probably 95% of the drummers I talk to, you'll always hear them sort of doing this. And you're going, what? They have this tendency to always have their hands going and always tapping the table counters and so during the Shannon interview, you'll hear it. Not in any kind of way that's disturbing or bothering, but every so often you'll hear these taps and you'll go, well, what is that? Well, I guess, as drummers do, they have their hands going. They got to move. They got to move. And, on August 6th, I was down in Syracuse and I interviewed Mickey Curry of Bryan Adams' band. The return of Mickey Curry, because I've already done one interview with him. This time we covered topics like Live Aid and stuff like that, what it was like playing Live Aid. And he did the same thing. He was tapping away. And so, you know what? In fact, what I'll do is I'll just put that one up tomorrow. I'll skip it ahead of the line and just get it so you'll have these sort of A-B or back-to-back drummer interviews where you'll hear them tapping away. It's fascinating. I don't know if it's a muscle memory thing or if it's a brain thing, but drummers do that. And listen, in no way, shape, or form am I saying that's bad or wrong, or it's just something I've noticed. Whoever I interview that's a drummer. When it's in person, they're tapping away, which is cool, Anyway, so let us get over here to Godsmack and Shannon Larkin, who as one fan described on Twitter when I mentioned Shannon, he said, he's a effing beast of a drummer. And you know what? I'm going to have to agree. And so, anyway, head over to loudtracks.com/Mitch. Pick up a t-shirt and keep looking, because in the next little bit, there will be hoodies. We're heading into the fall season. September, October, it's going to get a little chilly, maybe at night, and you'll need a hoodie. And why not get a hoodie that says Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon on it? I think it's a delightful idea, quite frankly. And I will work on my end on getting Jeremy White to do his Jeremy Stanley and Jeremy Coverdale imitations on air, where everybody can enjoy the brilliance of Montreal's number one on-air personality. There you go. Yeah, he's no slouch, let me tell you. Anyway, speaking of no slouches, here is the one, the only, and for you, Steve Brown, the mighty Shannon Larkin. We are here at Heavy Montreal with Shannon from Godsmack. A pleasure to talk to you again.
It's nice to see you, man.
Yeah, so the last time we spoke, we were talking about the use of backing tracks on the shows, and you said you only use 2. Is that something that you might want to reconsider down the road to have a bigger production, or is it more about just getting straight in there and pedal to the metal, let's give them a real show?
Yeah, well, it's more about like our whole history and past, and we've always been like a real old school kind of rock band. And, when the tracks and stuff started happening, God, it's probably been, 10 years or so. I remember the first time I really saw it was a band, Evanescence,
Who are here tonight?
Yeah, and they're awesome, by the way. I love them, and they're all great people and a great band. But that's when I was watching on the monitor. We were in Japan, and we had gone out and seen them. And I saw all these lights going on, and the monitor guy was explaining to me those were the tracks that they're running, right? And then later on, there was a show we played, and the original guitar player, Ben, the guy that was the main songwriter in the band, wrote most of that first record, he had walked back to his amp while they were on stage and picked up the phone and picked it up on stage. And I thought it was the funniest thing, and I knew Ben. And so after the show, I'm like, dude, you took a call on stage? And he said, oh, it was my dad. I had to answer it. But the funny thing was, when he stopped playing, and right in the middle of the song, he picked up the thing, and he said, I can't talk right now, I'm on stage. He stopped playing, and the guitar was still happening. And I'd never seen that before. I'm like, what's that? And that's when I learned about, you can run tracks, and the drummer has to play to a click, which, I'm...
That's not you.
I've been in this business 36 years. I've made 30 albums, whatever. So I've used click all the time. I'm a pro at it. But live, it's just doesn't feel right, to me. And, so anyway, flash forward to this new record in which we used a lot of synthesized sounds and, new producers, stuff we'd never done before. And we realized, wow, we don't have the live people on stage to make this. So we experimented with tracks. So at first we jumped head into it, man. And we got the whole rig and spent all this money on this whole rig. And we played literally 2 shows before Sully came and said, dudes, this isn't us, And we did keep it in 2 of the songs. Simply Unforgettable has this, we got this child chorus from this middle school in. And so we thought that should be in the song. So that's what you hear on that one. And then in Bulletproof, there's a bass synthesizer thing that happens that we thought, would enhance the song. So those 2 songs, we figured... that to make it sound most like the record in full like that. But every other thing, and we tried to do it the whole concert, but every song got thrown out. So we're back to being ourselves.
Real band. Let's talk about this. You mentioned 30 albums, a long career. You started somewhere around 77, 78 with Wrathchild America. How is it different coming into an established band as opposed to trying to make it on your own and creating your own thing with your own band?
It's a completely different environment. I mean, any musician will tell you it's just as hard as making it as a basketball or football player. Or, being a musician, less than 1% of us ever have any kind of real success. And so I struggled, man. I made 20 records before I even joined Godsmack with 3 different bands and session, Amen, Wrathchild, Ugly Kid, Candlebox. That was a touring gig I did, but session work with Glassjaw and Vanilla Ice and Doug Penny from King's X, a bunch of work that I was doing. And so to get the call from these guys in Godsmack, it just changed my whole life as a musician. All of a sudden, here it is. I joined a successful thing, hey, the next record could have flopped and we could have not been successful. But at the time, I was like, I finally got to where I dreamed of getting in my whole life since I was 12 years old.
Is it rewarding that you got to this point, or was it disappointing that you couldn't make it with your own thing?
No, it was rewarding because, none of the band things that I ever did was my own thing.
Right.
Like, even though Wrathchild was my band, it was still, we were a 4-piece, so it was all 4 of ours. And we had, toured in a band together for 6 years before we even got signed. So it became a group thing, and that's why you can be a solo artist if you want, or you can be in a band. But if you're being in a band, then everything kind of, the good and the bad, it reflects on everybody, not just one guy.
Right.
And so, coming into Godsmack was a complete departure from anything I'd ever done.
On the drumming side, when you come in and there's been an established catalog and fans know the songs, they know the parts, they know the lyrics, they know where that little ping goes in the guitar, drumming-wise, do you come in and say, listen, I'm just me and I'm going to do my thing? Or do you sort of take the time to study the original and say, okay, those songs, I got a copy?
No, I played exactly like the records.
Okay.
Even though the first 2 that Sully played on, I play them exactly like he played them because I feel that I've always felt when I'd go see live bands, and being a young drummer at the time, I'd go see, Rush or everybody, Judas Priest, whoever I saw. I would learn the song. That's how I taught myself how to be a musician, was by learning from these bands that influenced me. And so when I'd go to a show and they didn't play it like I'd learned it meticulously, it bummed me out. So the bands that I go see that the drummer would play it exactly like the record were my favorite bands. So I am that guy. I play it just like the record. There's a little bit of improv that you can do. If you're having a hot night, I might add an extra fill in and look at my drum tech. Did you hear that? You know what I mean? But for the most part, for the fans, I try and play it exactly like the record.
So when you get to making your own albums with the band, like When Legend Rise, what do you sort of want to bring to the sound? Do you want to sort of show them what you've got, or say, listen, this is the Godsmack sound, we want to stay in that pocket?
Yeah, all the showing them what I've got went out after Wrathchild.
Right.
And in the days of Wrathchild and in the advent from the 70s moving into the 80s, early 80s came, people, real quickly, I'll go back to what irritates me about people is saying that 80s music sucks. When in the 80s, listen, there was a lot of popular music that did suck in the 80s with new wave. Some of the new wave stuff was just pre-processed. You know what I mean?
Cinnamon drums, or whatever they were.
Yes, and that kind of thing. But punk rock, hardcore punk, hardcore thrash, and metal, thrash metal was invented in the 80s. And as a young kid, that's what I gravitated towards, And so I think that, I get at that time, especially with thrash metal as a drummer, a young drummer, that was like the hardest drums to play. So I tried to learn everything from the Metallica and Slayer and Venom and all those early bands that I loved. And it was about drums to me. And so when Wrathchild made records, I was trying to write the most badass, intricate, hard drum parts that I could. And it was about me. And I was like, I want to be this famous drummer, man. It was a dream I had. But when I joined Ugly Kid Joe and Dave Fortman, those guys taught me to play for the song. And so it became less about what people were going to think about my drumming as opposed to, is this song going to, touch people and be a hit and grow the band to this next level? And, all the while I'm thinking I'm on my way to being a rock star, which was my dream from the age of 8 years old, And so they helped me so much as far as not thinking about drums. Now, coming to your question of Godsmack, from Ugly Kid Joe, I learned to play for the song, and my ego...
It's the most important thing, really.
Which is the most important thing, and my ego, about being the raddest drummer on the planet went away, because now I was maturing as a musician, and I was starting in Ugly Kid Joe is when I started to learn how to play the bass enough to write music, where in Wrathchild I wrote lyrics and would help arrange and put songs together, and I had all these ideas, but I couldn't write actual music because I didn't play a stringed instrument. So Ugly Kid Joe and Dave Fortman was huge in saying, you got to learn how to play something if you want to write songs, And so I started becoming a songwriter also in Ugly Kid Joe. And so that, even though I didn't write one song on this last Godsmack record, because we tried something different, Sully wrote with other people and all that, it still translated to me when I'm in the studio to play for the song, whether I wrote it or not, And session work helped me a lot in that. In the mid-'90s, when I was doing a lot of session work, you're in there, there's a producer and the artist, and they're telling you what they want, and so your job's to play it exactly like they want it. So you have to crush your ego before you're walking in that door. You're there as a session player.
You're paid to play.
Yep. And so a lot of that carried over into the band Godsmack, which I'm 1/4 of it. It's part of my band. It's part of me now. But the ego still has been crushed, and I'm in my 50s, so I don't care so much. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I wished when I was a kid that, wow, I'll still be in a band and playing rock and roll music when I'm 50. And so that happened, and a lot of it is attributed to the fact that I crushed my ego a long time ago. And so when Sully says, hey, play it just like this, I don't go, oh, this is my band, I can play how I want. I don't care. I want the song at the end of the day to turn out the best way it can. And so...
It's a team.
Yes.
Let me talk about the new album, because there has been a lot made, especially if you follow the wonderful internet, about the different sound, the different approach. Is that not what a band is supposed to do, though? Aren't you supposed to evolve? You look at the Madonnas and the U2s and some of those bands that have always done something different, and they're playing stadiums, so obviously they're doing something right. Is it great? Is it good that you evolved, or do you want to go back on the next album and go, all right, we tried that, we got to go back to the Godsmack sound?
Well, it's the proof's in the pudding. No matter what we think as a band, 3 number 1 singles in America. We've never had 2 in a row. We've had number 1 singles or whatever, but to get 3 in a row puts us in some small group. So the way we see it, well, that's success. It worked. You know what I mean? And so you can't really argue with it. And again, the ego thing. At first, it hurt our egos that our fearless leader, who we've followed for 20 years, wanted to work with outside writers for the first time. But we always have been influenced by our idols, and one of obviously Sully's biggest idols is Aerosmith, and they went through the whole thing where their career looked like it was stalling. They were all messed up and
brought in Holly Knight, Diane Warren, Jim Valens.
Yes. Fairburn came in and got them their first huge, reinvigorated the band's life and career. And they had also gone through a period, kind of like we did, in which, they had trying to get off the sauce and drugs and partying and just focusing on the music and not being posers in that, we're getting older. We can't sit here and act like we're 20-year-olds and we're pissed off and angry at the world and want to thrash. It's just not us. So if we do that to try and still sell records and keep our old fans happy and not be afraid that they're going to say these guys are sellouts or something, it ends up being a selfish decision in which we're like, look, we need to just if we want to keep on doing this, which we're having a great time, by the way. We're all for, we have our habitats and our families and our routines in life now, and we're all happy. We're not mad and angry and pissed off. And so it's going to reflect in our music. If someone wants to say to me, who played in Amen, that I'm getting soft in my old age, then so be it. Go and listen to Amen and see where I was at 20 years ago.
Yeah, and I think expanding your musical horizons is a way to keep the longevity going. Because if you just do the same thing now, AC/DC is not going to agree with me, but generally if you just do the same thing over and over and over again, at some point the fans go, All right, we've been there. Thanks.
That's right. And ACDC is a great example of that. But there's only a couple bands that have...
They're the exception to the rule.
They are, AC/DC and Ramones. I mean, both those bands had their own thing, and they're legendary, and they never changed, and their fans loved them for that. But then you mentioned some greats like U2 who...
Yes.
You know, it's always about finding the next new thing, and it might be selfish as a musician, but they had to say, you know, if they like it, they like it, our fans. If they don't, they don't. You know, we are for people, we're individuals, and first and foremost, we are artists, and, you know, we can't just, like, try and change for money or something. We all have money. You know, it's not about money, so people can't call us sellouts or something. You know, it's all about... The way, to me, it's about trying to be real, and I'm not going to be up there on stage when our opening band's in their 20s and I'm in my 50s, and they're heavier than us or something, so I got to go out and feel like I have to be as heavy as them or something. That'd be fake. It'd be me posing like the opposite of what I called a poser in the 80s when I was into thrash and punk would be what I would be if I was trying to be heavy. See what I'm saying? It's shoe on the other foot thing, and it's all turned around now.
Let me quickly talk, because we're going to run out of time, about being an artist. Because with a band, which is a brand, which is what Godsmack is at this point, you can put your name on the marquee. You can go do the songs that were recorded 20 years ago. Fans are going to show up, and they're going to have a great evening. How important is for you as an artist to actually create new music and stay creative and not just go and do, here are our top 10, 15 songs, and let's just play them again and again, and we'll do them next year on something, you know. How important is it to you to create new music and keep that moving forward?
Well, you know, it's very important to me. However, you know, Godsmack is Sully Erna's band, yep. And he hand-picked each one of us. And he had the vision of what this band should sound like, should look like, what our stage show should be. You know, the direction we go. We make albums 4 years apart, so he always has time to see which way he wants to take the band. And we follow him and trust him. It hasn't failed, right? No. So on the creative side and being an artist, that's why Tony and I, but on the side, when we have time off, we do a blues thing called the Apocalypse Blues Revival. It used to be called The Revue. We got a new singer who is my drum tech in Godsmack for 17 years. And so, you know, we didn't go, and Tony and I, being in Godsmack, we could easily went and looked for some famous singer, you know, to sell records. You know, we have Godsmack, which is Sully's vision that we believe and follow and trust for 20 years. And so, you know, that'd be a question really for him on how he feels about... You know, I do say that, you know, he's a good leader. He gives us, you know, our way in, and we weigh in with, look, I'd like to do something from, even if it's one song, we got to do something from Faceless, because a lot of fans like that record, and we do. But we are going really heavy on new music. You know, we have like 6 new songs, I think, in our set, which is a lot for a new record. And so we wait on, you know, our like, if we think we're going to piss off old fans, then we got to put something on here from the 4 record or whatever. It is, but it's also one of those good problems to have. We have too many hits. We got to put, you know, it's like, oh, they didn't play Straight Outta Line, which was a #1 hit for 14 weeks in America. We had to drop it from the set because, well, you know, Sully wanted to put some more new songs in there because he's so on fire on it. So as a creative outlet, that's a question for him. But personally, Shannon here, you know, I do something on the side, a side project, and I've always done it. In Wrathchild, I had a punk rock side project. In Ugly Kid Joe, I had a rockabilly side project. When I first joined Godsmack, Tony and I started a funk project. And that's how we got Shane and the blues thing. Shane sang, my drum tech Shane, sang for our blues thing. He's got a great voice, but just was a tech, you know? And so, anyway, so creatively, Tony and I, that's how we do it, man, because we follow and we believe in Sully, and we obviously like what he's done musically, or we wouldn't be in the band, because we don't need to be, you know. We're in our 50s. We've been successful for 20 years. We could quit today. But you know, we do love Godsmack. We have Godsmack pride, and you know, it's not about money. It's about trying to age gracefully in this business that we've been so lucky and blessed.
And I'll ask you this because we're running out of time, but we are at Heavy Montreal, and your next two shows are two other festivals coming up. How important are festivals to keeping the music scene alive? Is it just too much of a good thing, or are they essential to keeping the scene moving forward?
It's definitely essential to keeping the scene moving forward. And, you know, it's like when we go to Europe, we see these festivals. Oh my gosh, it keeps rock and roll alive. I mean, it really does, man. And so, you know, these festivals, I watched as America started leaning towards festivals, and thank God for Perry Farrell, Lollapalooza. You know, he grabbed that from Europe. That was where the ideas came from, and it changed the music scene in America. And right at the time that it needed to change, because the advent of streaming and downloading was coming. And, you know, Perry Farrell he's not Nostradamus. He couldn't have even probably predicted what would happen in the music business. But man, was he a mystical genius for bringing the festivals to America like in the way he did, which mixed different genres of music from, you know, now you'd see Ice Cube, a rap dude, playing with Butthole Surfers, you know what I mean? And that was a European thing, you know. They would, I remember when Amen,
even here today, we've got Godsmack, Quiet Riot, Steel Panther, you've got Cataclysm, it's like sort of all over the map.
Yep, and that was a lot to do with European fans. I mean, my punk band Amen, that was as brutal as any punk band you'll ever hear, would play a festival with Aha was the headliner. You know, and that's real, you know what I mean? And so, then it happened, and Perry brought it to America. So with the advent of the internet crushing music, record sales, period, gone, right? The festivals, I feel, have kept rock music alive, because even as Godsmack, we're a band that's, you know, been successful at radio, but, you know, certain places we go, the people don't come out. But if we go to, like, for instance...
Well, you were in Italy recently, and you were playing to 1,000-seaters kind of thing.
Yeah. But even, like, in Madison, Wisconsin, for instance, we can go there. We're headlining a festival, and it's, you know, 8,000, 10,000 people, whatever it is, 20,000, I don't know. And if we go there ourselves, we'll probably draw 3,000, 4,000 people, maybe. You know what I mean? And so that's the festival keeps bands, even that are successful, alive, and gives us hope that, you know, the next thing can happen.
I agree. And with that, I'll say thank you, because we had 20 minutes, and I'm going to respect that. But thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
That was great.
You're listening to Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon. Rock Talk.